Social and political movements. Introduction. Oh, here's some interesting piece of news. Movements launched against the evil social practice of child marriage has been successful to a great extent, due to which there has been a decline in the very same by almost 50%. The volunteers in this movement worked with a conscious mind and a clear goal. Furthermore, they received undaunted support from volunteers belonging to the anti-dowry movement. Now, there is a need to start a drive against the malice of poverty and malnutrition, since these two problems need to be tackled on a high priority basis. After reading this news, I am content to know that the future of our nation is in the safe hands of our youth, who have a sincere interest in breaking down the aforementioned roadblocks on the road to our nation's progress. In our last session, we had obtained information on various national and regional political parties that competed against each other to attain political power through victory in elections, and in turn attempted to solve the plethora of problems that plagued the common man. Political parties generally adopted a comprehensive perspective in their functioning, which in simple terms meant that they could not concentrate on a particular issue. They have to take into consideration matters varying from public cleanliness to space research from a national perspective while making crucial decisions. Political parties were expected to formulate a detailed program for solving various problems that were perforated through each and every section of the society. Furthermore, it was the duty of political parties to adopt policies whilst taking into consideration the interests of each and every citizen of the nation who belonged from different walks of life, namely farmers, laborers, businessmen, women, youth, and senior citizens. In this session, we'll take an in-depth look at various social and political movements that were launched and the impact it has had both directly or indirectly on the lives of each and every citizen in India. Why movements? We are well aware that not every individual in a society can dedicate their life in the participation of numerous political activities whilst contributing to social welfare. However, on that note, there are a few individuals who focused their attention on a particular issue whilst gathering like-minded people and organizing them in that regard in order to pressurize the government to resolve the very same. Furthermore, these individuals would follow up on the aforementioned issue and constantly generate public opinion in that regard, thereby putting tremendous pressure on political parties and the government. Hence, all the aforementioned tasks involved could be defined as a movement. It was this organized activity which was considered to be the essence of any movement. Such movements were considered to be crucial in a democratic setup. Various social problems came under thorough discussion during these movements, wherein government was compelled to pay attention to them. At times, leaders and activists of a particular movement usually provided necessary information on those issues to the government, which in turn proved helpful to the latter in decision-making policies. However, there were some movements that aimed at opposing a particular decision or policy of the government. The right to protest was considered to be one of the basic fundamental human rights in a democratic society. However, this right was needed to be exercised in a judicious and responsible manner. There are many movements in India actively involved in the rehabilitation of the displaced population in order to secure their livelihood. However, the most popular of them all is the Narmada Bachao Andolan, or Save the Narmada movement, consisting of Adivasis, farmers, environmentalists and human rights activists against a number of large dams being built across the Narmada River, which flew through the states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. This movement, at its inception, was spearheaded by the Indian social activist Medha Patkar, 1954, and Murlidhar Devidas Amte, who was popularly known as Baba Amte, 1914 to 2008, and still is today by the former, the latter having passed away on 9th February 2008. She has organized several fasts and satyagrahas. Patkar has also been to jail because of a desire to achieve right to life and livelihood for the suppressed people. Amongst the major celebrities who had shown their support for this movement were Booker Prize winner Arundhati Roy and Bollywood actor Aamir Khan. What is a movement? The following are a few aspects with regards to the term movement. A movement was comprised of collective action, and people's active participation was expected in that regard. A movement is born when different but like-minded people come together in the interest of a particular issue. For instance, the ever-increasing menace of pollution. A movement ideally focused on the achievement of a particular social objective or problem. For instance, the India Against Corruption, an anti-corruption movement which had been launched in 2011 CE. A movement was also influenced by the quality of leadership, which helped determine the shelf life of a particular movement. The aims, objectives, plan of action, strategy, etc. of a particular movement were decided by its leaders. Therefore, strong leadership was crucial in the effective functioning of a movement. A movement was usually aided by numerous organizations, and without their help, it became difficult in the following up of different issues. For instance, numerous farmers' organizations spread all across the Indian subcontinent. Any movement to be truly successful required tremendous public support. People should feel connected to the issue that is being undertaken by that particular movement. Furthermore, a particular movement had a plan of action which helped shape public opinion. Generally, movements that were devoted to the fulfillment of a particular issue had some sort of ideology as its foundation stone. For example, movements undertaken against child marriage, dowry, a social practice where payment, either in form of property or money, was made by the bride's family to the groom or his family at the time of marriage, etc. Strongly upheld the values of democracy, women empowerment, and social equality. At times, there were movements that gradually transformed into political parties. For instance, the anti-corruption movement that took place in 2011 CE eventually led to the establishment of the Aam Aadmi Party, which translated to Common Man's Party, or AAP. Did you know that public interest litigation or PIL or litigation filed in a court of law for the protection of public interest such as pollution, terrorism, road safety, constructional hazards, etc. took center stage in India towards the end of 1970s and came into full bloom during the 1980s. Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer and Justice P.M. Bhagwati of the Supreme Court of India delivered landmark judgments which led to the opening up of new vistas in this sphere. A number of movements were launched by historical figures such as Mahatma Gandhi, 1869 to 1948, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, 1827 to 1890, Sant Gadge Maharaj, 1876 to 1956, and Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, 1891 to 1956, which helped shape the course of history in India. They are as follows. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi or Mahatma Gandhi, 1869 to 1948, fondly known as Bapu or Father, launched several historic movements which he termed as Satyagraha, derived from two Sanskrit words, Satya or truth and Agraha or insistence, during his lifetime. He began his political career in India with the launching of the Champaran Satyagraha on 19th April 1917 CE, which highlighted the plight of indigo farmers, which was followed by the Khera Satyagraha, which highlighted the plight of the farmers who were affected due to floods and had pleaded for tax exemption. Both these agitations took place in Gandhiji's home state of Gujarat. His first plunge into national politics came with the Khilafat movement 1919 to 1922, wherein he lent support to the Muslim population. Perhaps the most iconic and historic movement launched by Gandhiji was the non-cooperation movement launched on 1st August 1920 CE, in which he had set the goal of the attainment of Swaraj or self-governance. Following this, Gandhiji had launched the Dandi March or Salt March or Satyagraha, which lasted from 12th March 1930 CE to 6th April 1930 CE and was considered to be a pivotal incident in the history of Indian freedom movement. It was during this movement that Gandhiji had led a long march on foot with a dozen of his followers from his ashram or religious retreat at Sabarmati near Ahmedabad to the town of Dandi near Surat on the Arabian Sea coast. After completing a journey of some 240 miles or 385 kilometers on the morning of 6th April, Gandhi and his followers, who by then were joined by crowds that swelled up to hundreds of thousands of people, picked up a handful of salt along the shore, thus technically producing salt and breaking the law. The penultimate movement launched by Gandhiji was the Quit India movement on 8th August 1942 CE. It was during this movement that Gandhiji had coined the popular phrase "Karenge ya marenge" or "do or die," which meant that each and every Indian would give everything they had to overthrow the British yoke or die trying in the attempt. Jyotirao Jyotiba Govindrao Phule or Mahatma Phule, 1827 to 1890, was a prominent social reformer and thinker of the 19th century CE who led various movements against the prevalent caste-infested society in India. He was a pioneer for women education in India and fought for this cause throughout his life. He received unmitigated support from his wife, Savitribai Phule, in this regard. In 1873 CE, Jyotirao Phule formed the Satya Shodhak Samaj, or Society of Seekers of Truth. The purpose of the Satya Shodhak Samaj was to decontaminate the society from the disease of caste discrimination, whilst liberating the oppressed lower caste people from the stigmas inflicted by the upper caste Brahmins. Sant Gadge Baba Maharaj, born Devuji Zingaraji Janorkar, 1876 to 1956, was a mendicant, saint or social reformer from Maharashtra. He lived in voluntary poverty and wandered from one village to another in order to promote social justice and initiate numerous reforms, especially related to personal hygiene and sanitation. He is still revered by the common people in India even today. In 2000-2001 CE, the government of Maharashtra launched the Sant Gadge Baba Gram Swachhta Abhiyan project in his honor. This program awards prizes to villagers who maintained the cleanliness of their village. In addition, the Government of India had instituted a National Award for Sanitation and Water in his honor. Furthermore, the University of Amaravati had also named in his honor as Sant Gadge Baba Amaravati University. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, popularly known as Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, 1891 to 1956, was an Indian jurist, economist, politician, and social reformer. Also known as the architect of the Indian Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar had campaigned against social discrimination directed towards the untouchable castes or Dalits, whilst supporting the rights of women and labor. Dr. Ambedkar was well known for launching the Dalit Buddhist movement, also known as Neo-Buddhist movement. On 14th October 1956 CE, at Diksha Bhumi, Nagpur, Ambedkar adopted Buddhism and converted approximately 500,000 or 500,000 Dalit or Bahujan individuals to his Neo-Buddhist movement. The concept of Sons of the Soil, or SOS, was deeply embedded in the human psyche. It underlined the view that the resources of a state specifically belonged to the main linguistic group inhabiting it, who were the sons of the soil or local residents. During the post-independence period, only a few enclaves or areas around Calcutta or present-day Kolkata, Bombay or present-day Mumbai, and Madras or present-day Chennai had undergone modern industrial development, while rest of the regions were backward. The central government at the time adopted a whole range of policies to influence the rates of growth in poorer states and regions so as to reduce the prevailing economic gap between them and the developed states. This unequal access to resources and subsequent competition that prevailed in that regard led to the genesis of the concept of the Sons of the Soil movement. For instance, during 1961 CE in Bombay, now Mumbai, the Marathi-speaking people comprised of only 42.8% of the entire city population. On the other hand, in Bangalore, now Bengaluru, the Kannada-speaking population comprised of less than 25%, whereas in Calcutta, now Kolkata, the Bengali-speaking population had hardly formed any majority at all. In the urban pockets of the state of Assam, barely 33% of the population were Assamese. The post-1951 CE time period witnessed the rate of migration in these cities develop at a breakneck pace. The Maharashtra Andhashraddha Nirmulan Samiti, or MANS, or the Committee for Eradication of Blind Faith, or CEBF, is an organization dedicated to fighting superstition in India, particularly, as the name implies, in the state of Maharashtra. It was founded by Narendra Dabholkar in 1989 CE. It is currently headed by Avinash Patil. This organization has also campaigned against immersion of Lord Ganesha idols in water bodies during the festival of Ganeshotsav and urged people to use smaller idols and vegetable dyes to avoid polluting rivers and lakes. Furthermore, they had urged people to immerse the idols into man-made tanks which were built specifically for this purpose. MANS had also challenged godmen who had claimed to have performed miracles. In December 2002 CE, a prize of rupees 11 lakh was announced to be given to anyone who could perform a list of 12 miracles, which included walking on water, floating in air, standing on flaming coals for 5 minutes, being present in 2 places simultaneously, and materializing necklaces from thin air, among others. Members of MANS toured widely in different rural areas whilst debunking Members of MANS toured widely in different rural areas whilst debunking these godmen. The promulgation and later adoption of the Maharashtra Prevention and Eradication of Human Sacrifice and Other Inhuman, Evil and Aghori Practices and Black Magic Act 2013, which criminalized practices related to black magic, human sacrifices, uses of magic remedies to cure ailments, and other such acts that exploited people's superstitions by the Maharashtra State Assembly, is considered to be the high point of this organization. There are various movements launched in India that aimed to stop the rampant pollution of our natural resources, particularly the water bodies that included rivers, lakes, oceans, etc. Chief among them was the Save Ganga movement, which was an exclusively Gandhian, non-violent movement which was supported by popular social activists and saints across states of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, etc. The Ganges, which was the largest and the most sacred river of India, with enormous spiritual, cultural and physical influence, faced rampant pollution through domestic usage like bathing, laundry and public defecation, which was further aggravated by the existence of chemical plants, textile mills, distilleries, slaughterhouses, hospitals, etc. around its vicinity, which contributed to the pollution of the Ganges by dumping untreated, toxic and non-biodegradable waste into it. Enraged by the government's inaction towards saving the Ganges, the Ganga Mukti Sangram Samiti launched the Ganga Rath, which travelled through Varanasi on 14th June 2012 CE and later proceeded towards Allahabad, Kanpur, Mathura, Vrindavan, and finally reaching Delhi on 17th June 2012 CE. There were movements also launched against the antiquated but still prevalent Hindu practice of female feticide, with the chief among them being Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, which translated to Save the Girl Child, Educate the Girl Child, which aimed to create awareness and improve the efficiency of welfare services intended for girls. The scheme was launched with an initial funding of rupees 100 crore or US $15 million and targeted the states of Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Uttarakhand, Punjab, Bihar and Delhi. It was officially launched on 22nd January 2015 CE at Panipat, Haryana by the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. This campaign was a national initiative jointly run by three governmental ministries: Ministry of Women and Child Development, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and Ministry of Human Resource Development. It initially focused attention in 100 districts throughout the country where low child sex ratio or CSR were recorded. The Beti Bachao Beti Padhao campaign was also supported by the country's apex medical organization, Indian Medical Association. The chief objectives outlined in this campaign are as follows: prevention of gender-biased sex-selective elimination, ensuring survival and protection of the girl child, ensuring education of the girl child. On 26 August 2016 CE, the 2016 Olympics bronze medalist Sakshi Malik was made brand ambassador for this campaign. The hashtag Selfie with Daughter was promoted on social media in June 2015 CE, when Sunil Jaglan, the Sarpanch or village head of the village of Bibipur in Haryana, took a selfie with his daughter Nandini and posted it on Facebook on 9th June 2015 CE. This hashtag soon garnered worldwide fame. The hashtag Not In My Name protest was helmed by Gurgaon-based filmmaker Saba Diwan through a Facebook post against incidents of lynching of Muslims and Dalits by self-proclaimed Hindu Gaurakshaks or cow vigilantes. A morcha or protest was held at Jantar Mantar in Delhi and other cities across the country, including Mumbai, against mob lynching in the name of cow vigilantism. Civic problems not only originated in the social but every other sphere as well. In India, especially in Maharashtra, many social reform movements had originated, which resulted in society becoming much more modernized in nature. While looking at the aforementioned aspects of a movement, one could safely say that our country's struggle for independence could also be categorized as a social movement. Various issues such as protection of rights of citizens, right to vote, minimum wages, economic security, etc. were the ideal focus of political and economic movements. For instance, the Swadeshi movement was an important economic movement. Important movements in India. Tribal movement. During the pre-independence period, the British government deprived the tribals their right to livelihood via utilization of forest resources. There was a tribal uprising by the Kolams in Chota Nagpur, which comprised most of present-day state of Jharkhand, along with adjacent portions of West Bengal, Odisha and Chhattisgarh. Gonds from Odisha, present-day Odisha, Kolis, Bhils and Ramoshis from Maharashtra, Santhals and Mundas from Bihar, etc. The history of tribal movements is believed to have originated from the struggles initiated by the aforementioned tribes. Tribals in India face several problems, the chief among them being denied access to forests and its resources. The sole demand of this movement was acceptance of the right of the tribals over forest resources, wherein they were permitted to collect forest produce of various kinds, whilst being granted the right to cultivate on forest land. Farmers' movement in India. Farmers' movements, with the passage of time, emerged as an important event in the history of the Indian subcontinent. During the British period, farmers began to organize themselves due to various anti-agricultural policies implemented by the British colonial government. You must be well aware of farmers' movements that took place in Bardoli, Champaran, etc., and movements against revenue collection, aren't you? These movements were inspired by the thoughts of Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade, and Mahatma Gandhi. Due to a few reforms introduced in the field of agriculture, namely tenancy laws, laws related to tilling of land, etc., the farmers' movement began to slow down. Following the introduction of Green Revolution in India during the 1970s, farmers' movement became more active and effective. Though Green Revolution aimed at increasing overall agricultural production and achieving self-sufficiency in food grains, it did very little to benefit the poor farmers, as they were now categorized as rich and poor respectively. This resulted in widespread dissatisfaction among latter sections of the farming population, which led to the beginning of farmers' movement. Appropriate price for agricultural products, treatment of agriculture on par with industry, implementation of the recommendations of the Swaminathan Commission 2006, which were as follows. Distribution of surplus and waste lands, preventing the diversion of agricultural and forest lands to corporate sectors for non-agricultural purposes, ensuring grazing rights and seasonal access of forests to tribals and pastoralists and access to common property resources, setting up a mechanism to regulate the sale of agricultural land based on quantum of land, nature of proposed use, and category of buyer. Debt relief, debt cancellation, national policy for agriculture, etc. were also some of the demands put forward by the farmers' movement. Swabhimani Shetkari Sangathan, Bharatiya Kisan Sangh or Indian Peasants Union, All India Kisan Sabha, etc. were some of the important farmers' organizations in India. The Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare of Government of India, with the aid of agriculture scientists, worked hard to improve the conditions of farming and farmers in the country. On that note, they had implemented a number of policies for the welfare of Indian farmers. A few among them include Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. This scheme had been launched to provide relief to the farmers on account of poor monsoon. Under this scheme, emphasis was laid on water to each and every farm, that is, to provide facilities of irrigation to each and every farmer, along with enhancement of water conservation skills. Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. The central government had launched this scheme in 2015 CE, according to which farmers were being encouraged to adopt the concept of biofarming by forming clusters. For the successful implementation of this scheme, a cluster of at least 50 farmers along with an area of land measuring 50 acres was required. Under this scheme, every farmer was provided a sum of rupees 20,000 per acre for a span of 3 years. Farmers were to utilize this amount for the purchase of bioseeds, harvesting and transportation of agricultural products to the local market. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. The Government of India had launched this scheme in order to provide relief to farmers inflicted with the loss of crop damage. This scheme was truly dedicated to the aim of farmers' welfare. Under this scheme, the burden of premium, that is, the amount to be paid for insurance, was to be reduced and their cases sorted out expeditiously. Apart from losses inflicted by crop damage, provisions were made to relieve farmers from losses faced by them in the aftermath of harvesting. Furthermore, this scheme provided assessment of local calamities along with a list on unseasonal rains, landslides and floods. Under this scheme, the farmers were supposed to pay 2% premium for Kharif crops, that is, crops which were cultivated during the monsoon season, and 1.5% premium for Rabi crops, that is, crops which were cultivated during the spring season, whereas the remaining premium, that is, 90%, that will be paid by the government. On the other hand, the Ministry of Labour and Employment of Government of India had resumed with the implementation of a number of policies made by the erstwhile governments for the welfare of unorganized workers, including landless agricultural labourers. A few among them include the Aam Aadmi Bima Yojana, which provided for a death and disability cover to rural landless households between the age group of 18 to 59 years. This scheme came into effect from 2nd October 2007 CE, which coincided with the 138th birth anniversary of the Father of India, Mahatma Gandhi. The Rashtriya Bima Yojana for BPL or below poverty line families that comprised a unit of 5 members was implemented in the unorganized sector on 1st October 2007 CE and provided for a smart card based cashless health insurance cover of rupees 30,000 per annum for each member of a family on a family floater basis, wherein each member of the family was covered under a common health insurance. This scheme came into effect from 1st April 2008 CE. Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme covered Indians who were 60 years and above and living below poverty line with a pension of rupees 300 per month or rupees 200 by central government and rupees 100 by the state government. For individuals above 80 years of age, the amount of pension had been raised to rupees 500 per month. Trade unions. Trade unions emerged during the backdrop of industrialization in British India. Textile industry, railway companies were established in India during the latter half of the 19th century CE. In 1899 CE, railway workers went on strike in order to meet their demands. However, the first organization that resolved the issues of workers was the All India Trade Union Congress, or AITUC, established on 31st October 1920 CE. During the post-independence period, trade unions started functioning in a much more effective manner. During the 1960s and 1970s, trade union movements had organized several agitations. However, during the 1980s, trade union movements began to disintegrate rapidly, the chief reason being the onset of globalization, which had affected the trade union movements to a large extent. At the beginning of the 19th century CE, industries like textiles, railways, etc. were established. It was on this backdrop that trade union movements had emerged in India. In India, workers faced different problems. A few among them include unstable employment conditions, contract labor, financial insecurity, absence of legal protection for workers, unlimited working hours, insecurity at workplace, health hazards, etc. Women's movement. During the pre-independence period in India, a number of progressive men had initiated a movement for the upliftment of women. This movement aimed at eliminating injustice meted out against women and ending their exploitation, aiding them to lead a better and respectful life whilst actively participating in social life on a daily basis. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule and Savitribai Phule, Maharshi Dhondo Keshav Karve, Pandita Ramabai, Ramabai Ranade, etc. took a leading initiative in ending the evil social practices of sati, an obsolete Hindu practice where a widow immolated herself on her deceased husband's funeral pyre, and child marriage. Reforms such as widow remarriage, women's education, and right to vote became possible due to tireless efforts of the aforementioned reformists. Post-independence, the newly framed Constitution of India granted equal rights to women in all spheres of life. In spite of this development, women were still not treated on equal basis with men. During this period, women's movement aimed at the achievement of a solitary goal: freedom. Furthermore, the movement demanded that women were to be treated as human beings first. During the latter period in India, women participated to a great extent in movements against corruption, caste discrimination, and religious extremism, which made them aware of many injustices that took place, not only against the society, but themselves too. Women started taking initiative in organizing movements against various types of injustices. In India, women's movement was, however, not homogeneous in nature. However, there were women's movements prevalent at various levels of society that took up issues such as health, social security, financial independence, and empowerment. The toughest challenge facing women's movement today was attaining equal education for women and giving them a status and prestige as human beings. Environment movements. We are all well aware that environmental degradation is a serious problem that prevailed not only at a national but an international level too. In case of the latter, several movements functioned to curb the further deterioration of the environment, which was made more effective with a significant international cooperation in this field. In India, many movements functioned on different aspects of the environment. These environmental or ecological movements took up issues such as protection of biodiversity, water resources, and forests, establishment of green belt or an area of agricultural land around an urban area which was protected from large-scale housing, prevention of pollution of water bodies, use of chemicals and their ill effects, etc. Did you know that Dr. Rajendra Singh, fondly known as the Waterman of India, had brought about a water revolution in the Alwar district of Rajasthan? He became popular for constructing thousands of johad or community-owned traditional harvested rainwater storage wetland which were principally used for effectively harnessing water resources. His tireless efforts led to the revival of 5 chief rivers in Rajasthan, namely Arwari, Ruparel, Sarsa, Bhagani and Jahajwali. He established an organization, Tarun Bharat Sangh or Young India Association, which worked towards the construction of 11,000 johad in hundreds of villages which were spread across the state of Rajasthan. He initiated a campaign for water conservation, revival of supposedly dead rivers, forest and wildlife conservation all over India. His social movement has been active for the last 31 years. He was awarded the Stockholm Water Prize, an award which was also known as the Nobel Prize for Water. Consumer movement. Consumer movements emerged in India following the declaration of the Consumer Protection Act in 1986 CE. This movement had a broad objective, according to which each member of the society was a consumer. Due to the changing nature of social and economic systems, with the passage of time, consumers faced different problems. Adulteration, increase in cost of items, fraudulent practices such as tampering of weights and measures are some of the problems highlighted in consumer movements. It is the chief aim of these movements to protect consumers from the aforementioned types of fraudulent practices. The most popular consumer movement in India today is Jago Grahak Jago, which literally translated to Awake Consumer Awake, and was sponsored by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs of the Government of India. Conclusion. Thus, in our session today, we were able to gain an in-depth knowledge of various movements that prevailed in India, which in turn led to a rapid increase in the participation of people in public life. The post-1980 CE movements were referred to as neo-social movements, as their nature was different from movements that has transpired in the preceding time period. These movements were also categorized as being issue-based in nature. Many of these movements were waged against various vices that were prevalent in present-day society, namely corruption, communalism, regionalism, terrorism, at both international and domestic levels, etc., which posed a serious threat to the very foundation of the institution of democracy. In our next session, we shall study the aforementioned challenges faced by the Indian democracy. Conclusion. Thus, in our session today, we were able to gain an in-depth knowledge of various movements that prevailed in India, which in turn led to a rapid increase in the participation of people in public life. The post-1980 CE movements were referred to as neo-social movements, as their nature was different from movements that has transpired in the preceding time period. These movements were also categorized as being issue-based in nature. Many of these movements were waged against various vices that were prevalent in present-day society, namely corruption, communalism, regionalism, terrorism, at both international and domestic levels, etc., which posed a serious threat to the very foundation of the institution of democracy. In our next session, we shall study the aforementioned challenges faced by the Indian democracy. Challenges faced by Indian democracy. Introduction. Did you see that, folks? How shameful! Don't people realize that bribery, which was the making of illegal payments to individuals, particularly in official positions, in order to influence their decisions, was threatening to uproot the very foundation of our society? Even worse, if this menace is overlooked, it could threaten the very existence of democracy itself. Although one often points finger at the individual receiving bribe, one should not ignore the fact that the individual giving bribe was an equal partner in this crime as well. As a matter of fact, one could safely argue that the bribe giver was more of a criminal than the bribe taker. It was this, often considered trivial incident, that through passage of time snowballed into something much worse, which we know today by the umbrella term corruption, which was slowly eating into the very fabric of our democracy. In our earlier session, we took an in-depth look at the various social and political movements undertaken not only to safeguard the rights of the citizens, but the very institution of democracy itself. It has been rightly said that democracy is a continuous living process. By taking a closer look at this phrase, one could surmise that merely adopting democracy was not enough. Rather, each and every citizen was required to undertake conscious efforts in the maintenance and sustenance of the institution of democracy. Furthermore, it was essential to understand the various threats posed and steps needed to be taken in order to deal with them in a democratic manner. In this session, we shall primarily focus on the numerous challenges placed before democracy in India. Prior to that, though, let us have a look at the very same challenges placed at an international or global level. Democracy. In this day and age, every nation around the world has adopted the democratic form of governance. However, in reality, there were a few nations that who, in the name of democracy, safeguarded the rights and freedom of its citizens, whilst giving priority to their overall welfare. Many democracies, even today, were coming face to face with arduous challenges, namely in the form of military or right-wing dictatorships. The spread of democratic values and ideals and adoption of true democracy by all nations was a major challenge that needed to be tackled at the earliest at a global or international level. Although there are many countries around the globe today that have adopted the democratic form of governance as part of their political framework, it failed to make efforts in the establishment of true democracy, wherein ultimate power was placed in the hands of its citizens. On the other hand, in some nations, democratic values and ideals appeared to be weak, in spite of democracy being deep-rooted there. In nations such as India, democracy appeared in the form of universal suffrage, or the right to vote granted to citizens above 18 years of age, conducting of national, state, and district-level elections, federal system of governmental structure, which was comprised of three interdependent branches, namely legislature or lawmaking body, the executive or body concerned with carrying out of day-to-day running of the country, and the judiciary or body concerned with law and legal system of the country, etc. However, this only encompassed the political aspect of democracy. In order for democracy to become a way of life, every individual must put into practice the values and ideals related to the very same. Several measures, such as inclusion of all social institutions in the decision-making processes and granting complete autonomy to them, empowerment of citizens, protection of human rights and values, etc., were needed to be adopted in order to firmly establish democracy. It is well known by now that in a democratic setup, political parties contest elections at various levels in order to attain political power. We, the people, elected the candidate of our choice who, on winning, represented our hopes and aspirations on a national platform via a seat in the country's parliament. However, at times, there was one certain question that crossed the mind of each and every citizen. Do political parties organize internal elections as well? Are such elections even held in the first place? The answer to this question is yes. It is mandatory for political parties to hold internal elections at an organizational level. These elections were held for various posts within the party, such as president, treasurer, and secretary. Furthermore, these elections were held triennially, that is, after every 3 years, and in accordance with the rules and regulations laid down by the autonomous constitutional authority that was responsible for administering election processes in India, the Election Commission of India. Furthermore, if a particular political party failed to abide by the aforementioned rules and regulations, it would end up losing its recognition. Due to the conduction of political party elections at an organization level, the grim possibility of it being dominated by a single person was automatically eliminated. This resulted in the sustenance and preservation of democracy within a political party. On another note, one of India's immediate neighbor, the People's Republic of China, PRC, or simply China, had adopted economic reforms and eventually became a member of the World Trade Organization, or WTO. However, in spite of these broad developments, China continued to be governed under a single-party system, which was spearheaded by the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, which begs the question, is China really a democratic nation? Following the victory of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, under the leadership of Mao Zedong or Mao Tse-tung over Kuomintang or KMT or Nationalist Party of China, under the leadership of Chiang Kai-shek in a bitter civil war that lasted from 1927 to 1949 CE. China became a republic and was renamed as the People's Republic of China, with the CCP emerging as the sole dominant political party in mainland China. All the officers of the party are elected through internal elections. The party comprised 2,300 delegates who elected the Central Committee, which was comprised of 200 members. This committee, in turn, elected the Politburo, and from that, the Politburo Standing Committee is chosen, which were the real decision-making bodies in China. The Central Committee also elected the top leader of the party, that is, the General Secretary, who would eventually become the country's president. In spite of all these practices, dictatorship of a sort prevailed in the Chinese Communist Party. The concept of democracy was simply namesake in China. As a result, the Chinese citizens did not enjoy the privileges which were visible in true democracy. Another challenge placed before nations was to ensure that the institution of democracy would gradually end up being deeply rooted in human society. Liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, freedom, peace, progress and development, and humanitarianism were values needed to be inculcated at all levels of society, and unmitigated support of the masses in this regard was possible only in a democratic setup. Challenges before Indian democracy. In order to ensure that democracy would play an important and more meaningful role in society, the Government of India implemented policies such as decentralization of power and reservation for women and individuals belonging from weaker sections of the society. However, all these measures raised a crucial question. Are we really giving power in the hands of our citizens? Communalism and terrorism. During the post-independence period, religious conflict and its resultant outcome, namely religious terrorism, posed as one of the major threats to Indian democracy. An ever-increasing atmosphere of religious hostility resulted in social stability being hampered. Furthermore, people's participation in the democratic process reduced to a great extent due to this sort of terrorism. Left extremists, Naxalism. Since the late 1960s, Naxalism emerged as a dark cloud that hovered over the head of India. It was named so after the village of Naxalbari, situated in West Bengal, where the movement had its inception. Though initially Naxalism began as a movement in order to eliminate various injustices meted out against landless farmers and tribal people, today it has transformed into a militant and a violent struggle by the latter, who accepted the Marxist-Leninist ideology of establishment of a stateless and classless society that featured common ownership of the means of production. Unfortunately, with the passage of time, the Naxalite movement neglected the plethora of problems faced by farmers and tribal people, and instead adopted violent measures to oppose governmental policies. For instance, attacking police forces and landlords. This movement has, in recent times, shifted its base of operation to the hilly and forest regions situated around 8 different states. It is believed that more than 150 districts in India were under the direct influence of Naxalism. This movement is most active in the tribal areas, spreading from Andhra Pradesh to Bihar and Maharashtra, whilst covering parts of Karnataka, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu. Corruption. In recent times, Indian society had come face to face with the cancer of corruption, which is believed to have been prevalent to a large extent in the public sector economy. The government's working capacity had drastically reduced due to corruption prevalent at political and administrative levels. Consequently, distrust and dissatisfaction developed amongst the common people towards the entire governmental system due to factors such as delay in governmental work due to numerous restrictions or observance of certain protocols, known as red tapeism, provision for poor public services and facilities, and indulgence of government officials and politicians in colossal financial blunders. Corruption in the electoral process, that is, bogus voting, vote rigging, bribing, and or abduction of voters and other such malpractices led to a significant drop in people's confidence towards the democratic process. Dynastic politics or monopoly of a particular family over political affairs was a major roadblock before democracy in India. Prolonged influence of the aforementioned factor in politics led to a reduction in democratic space, thereby making participation of the common man in the public sector obsolete. Criminalization of politics. An increased participation of individuals possessing criminal backgrounds in political process was another serious problem faced by most of the democratic systems throughout the world. At times, political parties granted candidature to individuals having a criminal background and facing serious criminal allegations such as murder, rape, and allegations of top-level corruption, etc. This in turn led to an increase in the role of money and muscle power in politics, which was further aggravated by violent incidents instigated by the aforementioned individuals that broke out during elections. Social challenges. Apart from the challenges mentioned above, Indian democracy also faced other problems such as unemployment, unequal distribution of wealth and other resources, ever-increasing gap between the rich and poor, caste-based issues, etc. that were needed to be resolved. What steps should be taken to make Indian democracy successful? Opinion of the majority was considered to be important in democracy. In a democratic form of government, a political party that obtained majority of votes came to power. The parliament in turn took all decisions on a majority basis, thereby aiming at the welfare of the latter. When priority was assigned to the needs of those belonging from the majority, it has resulted in injustice being meted out against those individuals belonging from a marginal population that made up the minority. Though democracy was a government elected on the basis of the majority, the minorities should also be included in the decision-making process. Hence, it is the chief duty of the government to take into consideration the interests of the latter, namely the minority. In short, in a democratic government, the opinion of each and every citizen should be deemed important. Similarly, a government should not only comprise individuals elected from the majority and/or minority community, but also those belonging from different religious, linguistic, ethnic, and caste groups as well, who were granted an equal opportunity to participate in the decision-making process. In the recent times, the Indian judiciary had made conscious efforts to ensure that political processes were conducted in a fair and transparent manner. In order to prevent the criminalization of politics, the judiciary had adopted measures such as severe punishment to criminals and debarring their participation in various political processes. To make democracy truly successful in India, it was not sufficient enough to make efforts at various levels of government, which included administration and judiciary. Rather, individuals at all levels of society were also required to make conscious efforts towards the achievement of this aim. Education for All, or EFA, Clean India Mission, also known as Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Jawahar Gram Samriddhi Yojana, or JGSY, self-help groups such as Self-Employed Women's Association, or SEWA, SEWA, and Aga Khan Rural Support Program India, or AKRSP-I, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, or MGNREGA, etc., and other such projects were undertaken both by governmental and non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, in this regard. To ensure increased participation of women in political matters, 50% seats were reserved for them in local self-governing institutions. In order to make Indian democracy truly successful, in every aspect it was essential to increase the participation of individuals belonging from all levels of society. If such participation increased, especially at the governmental level, it would help in better formulation of public policies. Furthermore, these public policies could be formulated through interactions with its citizens. Conclusion. Thus, in our session today, we had an in-depth look at the various challenges that posed as a dangerous threat to the very foundation of democracy itself. Values such as liberty, equality, fraternity, social justice, secularism, etc. were to be upheld and implemented even in our personal life. For the genuine success of democracy, every individual should keep in mind that he or she were responsible citizens of the nation. As I mentioned earlier, corruption is slowly emerging as a single most destructive entity that could cause irreparable damage that would threaten the very existence of institution of democracy itself in India. Hence, we the citizens of this beautiful country called India should strive in every possible way to eliminate this disease, and on that note, we must all take this personal pledge that we hold our beloved homeland's independence, sovereignty, culture and values to the highest respect. We will make every effort to fulfill our duty towards the country. I hate corruption. I am determined to abstain from all forms of corruption. In both educational and professional life, I am determined to refrain from cheating and would strive towards accountability. I will be fully respectful of the law of the land and human rights. I will strive to prevent discrimination and exploitation of human beings. I will endeavor to participate actively in all anti-corruption initiatives that aimed at building a network of committed individuals. I swear with sincerity and commitment that throughout my life I will neither take bribe nor offer any bribe and will keep on sensitizing people about the evils of corruption. Bharat Mata ki Jai. Jai Hind.